What's the weirdest misunderstanding you've ever had with your child's school? A few years ago, I got a call from my son's elementary school asking me to come in for an urgent behavioral meeting. The secretary didn't give any details, just said it was important and that it involved something my son had said about our home life. Now, my son was 6 at the time, imaginative, chatty, full of questions, but generally a well-behaved kid. So I figured maybe he said something weird in class or repeated a word he shouldn't have heard on TV. I wasn't exactly worried, but I wasn't relaxed either. I walk into the front office and get ushered straight into the principal's office. Inside are his teacher, the principal, and the school counselor, all sitting at the table with very serious expressions. There's a manila folder on the desk labeled Concerning Behaviors. That's when I started to sweat a little. I sat down and the teacher started. She said, "We've brought you here today because your son has been saying some alarming things to the other students, things that raise concerns about what he might be seeing at home." Now I'm genuinely confused. The principal adds, "It's come to our attention that he's been talking in graphic detail about someone in your household cutting people open, removing organs, and stitching them back together." The counselor chimes in. He even told one classmate that sometimes they don't wake up afterward. There was a long pause. Everyone just stared at me, waiting for an explanation. And then it clicked. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Like actual belly laugh in the middle of that dead serious room, which obviously only made the situation worse. The counselor gave me the kind of look people give when you're laughing at a funeral. I waved my hands, trying to calm them down. Sorry, it's not what you think. I'm a surgeon." They all blinked. "I specialize in pediatric cardiology. My son came with me to work a few weeks ago for Take Your Child to Work Day. He watched a surgery from the observation window. It was a routine case, but he was glued to the glass the entire time. They just stared at me. He watched us open a child's chest, repair a heart defect, and close. From his perspective, yeah, I cut people open, take out their insides, and sew them back up." The tension melted out of the room. The principal leaned back in his chair, visibly relieved. The counselor literally rubbed her temples and muttered, "Oh, thank God." The teacher looked half amused and half like she wanted to disappear into the floor. I shrugged. He's been telling people I cut people open for money because, in 6-year-old terms, that's kind of what I do. Apparently, he'd been telling his entire first-grade class about mommy's job and describing it with the passion of a horror movie narrator. One girl cried. Another asked if he was allowed to bring a heart to show and tell. They handed me a copy of the concern report to take home. It had a whole list of quotes, including, "My mom slices people's chests like bread. She takes the squishy stuff out and fixes it. Sometimes they don't wake up, but that's not her fault." I was crying laughing by the time I finished reading. Before I left, the principal said, "You might want to explain to him what's appropriate to share in class." I promised I would. That night, I sat my son down at the dinner table and asked, "Hey bud, what have you been telling your classmates about my job?" He proudly puffed up his chest and said, "That you save kids by cutting them open and sewing them shut again?" I said, "Okay, cool, but maybe next time, skip the part where they don't wake up." He thought about it, nodded, and said, "I'll just say you help people." Then he paused, "But I do want to bring in a fake heart next time." The next day, he went to school with a note in his backpack titled, "Approved Career Show and Tell Topics." It had exactly 3 bullet points: helping sick kids, washing hands a lot, not stealing organs.